Hello. So, we will be continue our discussion on computer networks and internet. Actually, we are discussing on network security in the last lecture. We will be continuing our discussion on network security. So, what we are in the last lecture, we are discussing on some of the aspects of network security, like determining network security policies, implementing the security policies, and their rest of the things are step by step what are the things will be there. So, actually we have seen that how to these things, that what are the issues related to determining the network security policies, and also we have seen the issues related to implementation of the security policies, right. And today we will look at the other aspects. So, if we look at the implementation of the security policy, so we require, other than our standard devices, we require some more stuff, right. Like one is that IDS, intrusion detection system, and there is a concept of firewall, like firewalling the thing, and there is another thing called firewall or NAT. We will come to those aspects, and this is my internal network. So, what I am trying to do? I am trying to do a internal network secured from the rest of the world, or so to say to the internet, right. So, what I am having a router to connect to the internet, and there are some of the devices which needs to be external to the needs to be put someplace where it will be accessed by the external world. So, that is the concept of demilitarized zone or DMZ zone, where the external servers which need to be accessed, like a for example, web server or some of the servers which need to be accessed, they are in the DMZ zone. So, there is a switch which connects this DMZ zone through the firewall to a some sort of a hub to router, and this hub as the whatever the packets comes in the hub, it is in the same broadcast and collision domain. This IDS basically try to look at the intruder detection system. So, it has protocols, it has logic to look at that to detect the intruders, or it has a database of knowledge base that how to detect, and this firewall is basically to prevent to the thing from the external world. Now, IDS cannot be inside firewall, right, then it cannot know that what is going on into the things, right. And so, there are that is DMZ zone. If you see, there are two category or two firewalls, one is which basically makes a isolated DMZ zone. So, this network is protected through this firewall, whereas this firewall protect this the systems in the DMZ zone and create a space where this type of systems can be there, whereas this is a more exposed things where we want to know that what are the different type of attacks etc. going on. So, implementing security policies, one is the firewall is one of the major aspects, other is the intrusion detection system or IDS, and also there is a concept of honeypot or honey net, right. So, it is something which attracts, as the name suggests, attracts these attackers to attack on the things. By that, the signatures of the attacks are learned, which may update the knowledge base of the IDS or something, IDS detection systems and other things. So, that is important to have those type of things in large installation, which are things. Now, there can be a network of these honeypots and to share the information, and it can be across different organizations also. So, that they share their information. So, it simulates a decoy host or network with services which are exposed to the attack, where the attack signatures are learned. The next step is to learn about the network. I need to know that what the network. So, IP address of the host on the network, key servers on the critical data, services running on those host and server, vulnerabilities on those servers. So, two form, one may be a passive or active. Passive thing is that undetectable, as I will say, and active are by active attack on the things, or which can be detectable by the intruder detection system. So, another aspect what we want to look at the network, that is the vulnerability scanning. Next step is the, so I want to scan that how vulnerable I am, what are the vulnerabilities inside the thing. So, list of host and services that, and many scanners will detect vulnerabilities, like there is a scanner called Nessus. Other scanner will allow you to exploit them, right. So, there is a Metasploit scanner to exploit. So, if the vulnerability is there, how to exploit it? Like I say, there is a vulnerability in the user level login creation, right. So, that is exploited to generate a higher level access right to the things. So, this is one is that when the attack happens, then you detect and learn. Other is that I can do a self scanning of the things, that what are the different vulnerabilities vis-a-vis the with my exploit database, and try to find out what sort of vulnerabilities are there. So, there are scanners which are updatable, that is for few vulnerabilities install write new plugins. So, Nessus attack scripting language, and there are several languages there. So, that is means scanning the vulnerabilities. So, if I have the vulnerabilities, whether I can do some sort of a penetration testing, like I want to do some sort of a what we say non lethal attack on my system and see that how much I can penetrate and type of things, or some sort of ethical hacking on the systems, right. Identify the vulnerabilities. Once the vulnerability identified, we can exploit them to gain access using a framework like Metasploit. This is as simple as selecting a payload to execute. Otherwise, we manufacture a exploit or we generate an exploit and type of thing. So, there are different exploit for which there is no per se prevention on the things. So, these are what we say 0-day exploit type of things. So, there are so to say quote unquote costly exploits. So, that things are there, but once we learn, then we go on patching. So, we may have also tried to find out new vulnerabilities. This involves writing code, testing function, etc. So, this is a separate activity of the security group of a organization to look at that what are the different well known vulnerabilities and type of things, do a self exploitation of my network or ethical hacking on my network, find out that what are the possible attacks which are possible into the systems, and then try to recommend or find out what are the mechanisms will help in detecting in preventing those, right. So, these are the different aspects of these exploits, vulnerability scanning and what we say penetration testing. Now, finally, we have the post attack investigation. So, forensic of the attacks, like if there is an attack, then we have to investigate and do some forensic or post mortem of the attacks, right. This process is heavily guided by law, like what you have to do and what are allowed, etc. And there can be different guidelines from the organization to organizations, like the type of things which is true for academic organization may not be true for a banking or financial organization. So, retain chain of evidences. This evidence is the case, in this case is the data on the host. So, there is a what are the different evidences, log files of the compromised host to hold the footstep or the fingerprints of the attacker to find out that how the attacker came. Every minute with that host must be accounted for. For legal reason, you should also examine a low level copy of the disk and not modify the original thing, right. So, type of things that for legal later on some litigation, etc., we need to do, especially commercial organization giving services to other organization and type of things. So, in some cases your data is in some other place and type of things need to be handled appropriately. So, what we see this type of steps are not a one time things, it has to be executed on a routine basis, because the system is evaluating or having different state at different point of time. There are different updates, applications, attacks and type of scenarios are changing, both the system scenarios are changing, on the other side these attack scenarios are changing, right. So, vulnerability assessment of any network is very important, right, that I need to a priori know that how vulnerable I am, right. So, though it is a something which is difficult to say that I fully judged, but nevertheless there should be always a way of, or we are always looking at the vulnerabilities. So, today's enterprise are fully or mostly IT enabled, right. So, any enterprise, any organization, any even academic institution or any government federal organizations are all IT enabled, right, or heavily dependent on IT infrastructure, where the networking plays a major role in making things connected. So, need for self security, that is vulnerability assessment, is a order of the day, right. You need to do vulnerability assessment. So, there are content aware intrusion protection system. So, it is content aware IPS, file system scanning, penetration testing. So, these are the different aspects which need to be looked into. Now, this penetration testing, sometimes also called the tiger team attack or red team attack, that test for evaluating the strength of all security controls on the computer systems. Goal: violate the site security policies. So, I have a security policy, a mechanism to implement those policies, then what I want to know, that whether I can basically compromise this policy and attack the system, right. So, not a replacement for careful design and implementation with structured testing. So, it is independent of what the best practices you are having. So, it is a careful design, implementation, structure testing. In spite of that, whether there is a loophole or not, need to be looked into. So, methodology for testing the system in toto, right, once it is in. So, system in place. So, the system is in place, I have a mechanism to testing that whether the system is working faithfully or not. Examine procedural, operational control as well as technological control, right. So, it tries to look at procedural operation control and as well as the technological control in the things. So, there are different tools, some are proprietary tool which are pretty costly, public domain tools, but good, but others also knows that you are doing like this, and there are integration problem and issues like that. Need to evolve on one framework proprietary to the organizations, etc. That may be a need, but it is not, may not be always followable. Nevertheless, there are price product are always there. So, system vulnerability is in a hole or weakness in the application, design flaw implementation. Vulnerability type can be different, SQL injection, buffer overflow. Penetration technique, method of evaluating vulnerabilities of a computer system or network by simulating the attacks of the malicious hacker. So, methods, again it falls in that same line, we are not again discussing. So, if you look at the penetration testing things, so location of the target, block IP, network setup, vulnerabilities in open services. So, emulating vulnerability identification, then whether we can exploit from the using the exploit database gain access of the system, escalation and advancement stage to exploit the other targets, and information gathering and reconnaissance. So, to look into this whole loop. So, this is the way it goes on, that you first learn about the system, get the footprint of the different devices and type of things, then accordingly whether they are exploitable, consulting the exploit database, then try to escalate and advancement, and then again information gathering and so on and so forth, it goes in a loop. Or if you look at the typical architectural model of a penetration testing tool, so there is a system characteristics, knowledge base and system vulnerabilities, right. So, these are the things. So, obtain footprint, fingerprint services, emulator, so that is fingerprint OS, scan report. So, it is a, these are the things which go to the to find out the system characteristics. So, this from this the scan vulnerabilities to find out what are the vulnerabilities, consulting the knowledge base whether the system vulnerabilities, then exploit targets can be there. Like on the other hand, this thing can be used to patch the target also. So, some of the processes, some of the data stores where things are there. So, it is a not that very straightforward process, requires lot of expertise on the system level or OS level. It also need good exploit database which are good and updated exploit database which allows you to this exploit the system, but everything done in a quote unquote ethical manner, that is non-destructive manner, so that the system is not goes off, rather try to find out that what are the different vulnerabilities and other things, so that the patchwork can be or appropriate patches can be deployed. So, with this mechanisms we will try to look at now that different system level things, like as if you just recollect this one. So, there are different type of things, right. One is your router, firewall or NAT, there is IDS and type of things. So, we try to see that what are the different properties, whether something can help us in achieving better security features. So, some of the things like proxy server, network address translator, firewall are some of the features of the things. To be very to be on the at the beginning, I should say that these are the things which are not primarily, not all the things are primarily meant for the security, etc. So, they have other purposes also, but also can be looked into as a security measure, as these are nowadays common for all the network, and it has some of the property to isolate the incoming or expose the, or can handle the exposing of the internal host to the external things. So, this can be utilized on the things. Some of the things has been already discussed in our in this lecture series also, but for the say sake of generality and to continue our discussion, we are looking into some aspects again with a first, that means with a so that it is easy to correlate with the what we are discussing. So, what is a proxy or proxy server? Acts on behalf of other clients and presents requests from the other clients to the server, right. So, proxy is, as the name suggests, proxies for the other clients, right. Acts as a server while talking to a client and acts as a client while talking to the server. So, it is the intermediate systems which is proxying for the other. So, the primary need may be like at Kharagpur, we may be private IP blocks which are not routable. So, somebody is proxying for me and type of things, or actually proxy can have much higher levels, like or different type of aspects of the things, even do content based filtering, etc., and type of and allows to do some of the things like caching and caching and giving a better accessibility and type of things. So, commonly used HTTP proxy is Squid, mostly available in most of the systems. Yeah. Proxy server, it is a server that sits between the client application, for example, web browser, and a real server. So, I am accessing something like for typically for IIT Kharagpur, if I want to access say any external server, say IIT Bombay page or IIT Bhubaneswar page or IIT something, or some any other page, say some networking or IEEE standard page. So, what I am doing, I am sending a request as I am generating from the IP a particular private IP, even not that we have a proxy server which it hits. The proxy takes that, absorbs that IP and the port, and in turn send a request on behalf of me, right. How the things maintain? I have a IP and port, proxy has a IP and port, and this and the protocol, this and this particular tuple is unique for all connections, right. So, even if I have two browser, say Mozilla or something, two instances do the same page to the things, but they have a different port while going out the things. So, it intercepts all requests to the real server to see if they fulfill the request itself. If not, it forwards the request to the real server, right. So, what happened that as it is accessing the things, it is also caching the content. Somebody requesting, it may check that whether it is fulfilling the request or not. So, there are many servers, these two types of servers. This proxy improve the primarily to improve performance, can dramatically improve performance for a group of users. It saves all the results of request in a cache, can generally conserve bandwidth. So, we have a thing which is of replying the proxy in turn replying if that already it is in cache. There is filter request, that is another types is there, or instead of types I should say that basic purpose of the proxy server. So, it is not the proxy server types, it is other purposes of the proxy server. One is that input performance, because it is sending from the cache. Another, it has a property of filter request, right. When a request comes, checking it that whether request can be sent or not, that filter the request. In turn, it gives a some sort of a security feature, like prevent user from accessing a specific set of website. The organization thinks that this set of website cannot be accessed by the inside its own users. So, it can prevent user from accessing pages containing some specified things. Even the higher level proxy where the content can be seen, which can prevent user from specified pages which having a string, prevent user from accessing video files, for example, the type of things, right. And also it also have apart from that the caching effect, as we have discussed, that to give the things. So, these are different mechanisms what we can do with this proxy things. There is a concept of anonymous proxy, hide the user's IP, thereby preventing unauthorized access to the user's computer to the internet. So, it is anonymous proxy, hides the user IP, right, and all requests to the outside world originate with the IP address of the proxy server, right. So, what are the external IP address of the proxy server? The original outers, it basically the hide the user's IP, right. So, all requests of the outside world originate with the IP address. So, the IP address of the proxy becomes the IP address which is gone to the external server. It is sometimes very convenient, like online subscription of journal, like IIT Kharagpur have online subscription of various journals, IEEE, ACM, Springer, Wiley and type of things, right. I do not know the exact list immediately with me, but what happened that instead of while accessing, it gives the proxy IP for the access of authentication to access the journal. Whoever is going using this proxy will be able to authenticate the get a access to this journal things. And then digital library, these are the things which we are benefited here at sitting at IIT Kharagpur, and that must be doing in several other organizations. So, where it is located? So, somewhere in between, right, one side that original server where it is accessing all these user agents or user requests come to this proxy server. It has a access control list or access rules that by which the proxy that particular page can be requested, and or a cache, if it is already there, it will reply from the cache. So, that is the basic bottom line of the proxy server. So, function of HTTP proxy: request forwarding. Primary function acts as a rudimentary firewall of taking care of that which can be filtered. Access control: allow or deny accesses based on contents and locations, right. It can do if it is if the proxy is able to look at up to the content at a higher level, then it look at the it can open up the packet at the application layer or the message itself and check that whether there is a any access control restriction based on content or based on the location. Cache management utilized efficient utilization of the bandwidth for faster access, that is the cache management. So, this is broadly the how a proxy works, but although we are primarily looking at the HTTP proxy, there can be other type of proxy also, right. So, it is proxying for other services type of things. The next is network address translator. Now, this has been, I believe this has been already has been discussed during in this course, especially when we discussed about the IP and type of things, but I thought that it may be good to have a quick review of the things, to look at the things. But as the name suggests, allows a single device, router or dedicated box to act as an agent between the internet, public network and the local or the private network. So, it allows it's sort of a single box, and it basically map the one IP set to another IP set, right, for that matter IP and proxy to a port to another IP and port, so that it can have seamless connection. So, tries to address the IP address distribution problem, so that depth of the IP address, like IIT Kharagpur is running on a private IP blocks, like that several organization writing on the private IP blocks. These are non-routable. So, this network address translator change this IP to a valid IP which is routable and go on, and remember that who has connected to this for the particular IP. So, that when the requester come from the client, IP plus port and also with the IP port, and things goes on. Several variants of this network address translators are possible. So, this private ID space, like this on the see, this is a private IP space, this is also a private IP space. Incidentally, they are using same IP blocks, and but so if it is on the in a routable scenario, this could have been a IP class and it could have been gone for a spin. But here what we are doing from there is something which translate this IP to a valid IP which goes on, and if it is going there, it also take a IP, translate the IP and get that equivalent or the translated IP to access the private IP of the other network. So, there is some again small typo, this should have been private IP network 1, private IP network 2. So, that it access. So, H1 accessing H3. So, 10.0.1.2 are mapped to this IP, this carries over this IP again remapped to H3 means to this particular IP address, right. So, both are 10.0.1.2, but they are different IP blocks. Now, so while communicating across the network, so these are NATed or translated to this particular IP which is a routable and cross there, and this also IP of this interface and goes into the thing. Now, multiple things like H1, H3, H2 can simultaneously do because of their having that mapping with the port number. So, it is mapped appropriately at the by the NATer. So, while the request comes back, it knows that where to be delivered. Now, basic operation of the NAT as we were discussing. So, this source IP, destination IP goes on. So, it is the mapping goes on and it goes on into the system. So, this is private IP, public IP, NATing is being done out here, right. So, it comes with a 10.0.1.2 this one and goes out with a 128.143.721. While it is coming up, looking at this public IP stuff, it maps it to that particular IP, like here 10.1. So, it comes with a 128.143.71.21. So, it was having a mapping of this and goes on doing this. So, it is a mapping. So, IP device had a address translation table, so or ATT. It's like typically this address translated table, source is computer A, source IP this one, source destination NATing IP is this one at port number 1. So, it is NATed and this table is maintained, so that it can basically decipher where from the request came and who will get the thing. So, capability of NATing, maximum number of concurrent translator is one thing, like it can concurrently do, typically mainly determined by the size of the memory to store, typically determined ATT takes about 160 entry of a 160 bits. So, memory size 8 bit will support around so much concurrent connection, which is pretty high for any organizations. Main uses, polling of IP address, supporting migration from network service provider. So, when I have IIT Kharagpur today change the IP provider, it does not have to change the internal IP block. So, it is a private IP and still there, and IP masquerading is another challenge. Load balancing of the server is definitely need of the hour. There are some of the concern, performance, as there is a one hop, there is a performance issue. Fragmentation, care must be taken to datagram for fragmented before reaching the device. It is not designed for different IP address, different port number, etc. So, that the fragmentation is a challenge. End-to-end connectivity is destroyed by the thing, right. So, you have another hop into the things. So, NAT destroys the universal end-to-end reachability of the host in the internet. A host in the public internet often cannot initiate communication to the host in the private internet. The problem is what? So, when the two hosts are in the private internet need the communication with each other. So, there are two hops as we have seen, right. Here the NATer, a NATer at the other end. So, IP address in application if it is there, so that if the application carries the IP address, this NATer is destroyed application to carry IP address at the payload of the application generally do not work well with the this public private netting thing. And there are several other benefits. Use of NAT automatically creates a firewall between the internal. So, it is a security benefit. So, these IPs are never exposed. NAT will allow only the connection that are originated from within the internal to the internal. You can devise that method approach. An outside host cannot initiate a connection with the internal host, right, directly. So, inbound mapping requires a static netting. So, if you want to this IP to the things, we require a static netting. So, finally, is netting a proxy server? No, ideally no. NAT is a transparent to both the source and destination host, but proxy is not always transparent to the things, right. You know that where the proxy server. NAT is primarily a layer 3 device. It is a network address protocol, though we have a port number, but it is a primarily a layer 3 netting IP addresses, right. So, in contrast, proxy is a primarily a layer 4 or layer 4 plus device. So, it is more at the other end of the things, right. So, with this let us conclude our discussion today. Finally, we will like to see at on the security network security part, that what are the different aspects with respect to the different layers of the TCP IP or OSI layer, and some aspects of firewall and so on and so forth. Thank you.